Hello, today I am going to be showing the difference in AoE, damage, and DPS, as well as range, between the Bonzo staff and the Dreadlord sword. The Bonzo staff does not have a very large area of effect, as I have ascertained earlier. The Bonzo staff has about a 2-block range. So if I go 3 blocks away from this zombie, it does no damage. If I go 2 blocks away, oh wow, it's got a tiny area of effect. Okay. Allow me to change a... Okay, this zombie is roughly halfway, so I'm going to... Okay. This zombie is close to this side, so I'm going to go here, 2 blocks. Doesn't work. 2 blocks. It hits that one, which was about here, so it's about the middle of 2 blocks away, which is a grand total of 2 blocks. So that's correct. The Bonzo staff has a 2-block AoE. So based on that, it should be able to hit that zombie villager as well as this zombie if I aim it right there. That's odd. I wonder why that happened. Let's see. That explosion doesn't seem right. Let me see this again. That explosion is way up there, whereas the zombie died way down here. That means that the Bonzo's staff explodes early when it is directly hitting a mob. And in other words, the Bonzo staff effectively has an incredibly tiny 1 to 0.5 block AoE for from above attacks. So if I attack this zombie villager, it does hit this zombie, which was right here, which is about 1 block away. However, if I hit this zombie villager right here, that zombie still survives. Which, even though it was about 1.5 blocks away, it didn't die. So the Bonzo staff, I'd say, has about a 1 to 0.5 block effective AoE. Whereas the Dreadlord sword has quite a bit larger of an area of effect. If I go that far away, it still hits. Testing on this zombie. 1, 2, 3. It hits. Testing on this zombie. 1, 2, 3. It hits. The Dreadlord sword has an absolutely massive area of effect compared to the Bonzo staff. I shoot there, both of those zombies die. It's absolutely ridiculous. I shoot here. That zombie way over there died, as well as that zombie, and I shot there. That is an absolutely ridiculously large area of effect. The effective radius, 2, 3, 4, is about 3 blocks. Interesting that that zombie villager didn't die though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4. Oh, that's interesting. It's about 4 blocks now that I'm checking it. or 4 blocks away the edge of 3. It's the very edge of 3 blocks. So it's essentially the full 3 blocks is its radius. Possibly 3.5. So the Dreadlord sword has about a 3 block radius, which is far greater than the Bonzo's staff, roughly 2 block radius. So when comparing the Dreadlord sword to the Bonzo's staff, the Dreadlord sword has a grand total of 3 by 3 by 3, or 27 blocks, whereas the Bonzo's staff has 2 by 2 by 2, or 8 blocks. So if you've got 8 blocks versus 27 blocks, that's a grand total in AoE difference of 19 blocks. So the Bonzo's staff is far inferior to the Dreadlord sword in terms of area of effect. Now let's look at the actual damage. The Bonzo's staff does... The Bonzo's staff does 11,179 damage. The Dreadlord's sword does 11,106 damage, which is, as you can probably tell, an incredibly small difference. So, in effect, the Dreadlord sword and the Bonzo's staff have essentially the same damage. The Bonzo's staff has a smaller area of effect. It has this weird thing where you can jump with it, but that's just a gimmick. Dreadlord sword doesn't have that. However, the Dreadlord sword does have mob knockback. You can sell there. The Bonzo's staff has 0 mob knockback. The Dreadlord sword, however, doesn't really decrease in power due to that knockback because it has a larger area of effect. So it's still roughly equivalent to the Bonzo's staff in terms of effective DPS. However, one main thing about the Bonzo's staff is it's got a very expensive attack. As you can tell right there, it costs 49 mana to use Showtime. However, if you look at the Dreadlord sword, for me it costs 26 mana. And if you look here, the Bonzo's staff has Ultimate Wise 4, whereas the Dreadlord sword only has Ultimate Wise 2. Which means that the Dreadlord sword is far more mana efficient than the Bonzo's staff. So that's another boost that it has. The Dreadlord sword is also far cheaper than the Bonzo's staff, because the Bonzo's staff is a rare drop, and the Dreadlord sword is not a rare drop at all. So in general, the Dreadlord sword is better than the Bonzo's staff. There is quite a large difference between the two. The Bonzo's staff also has to be upgraded with Wither Essence, as opposed to the Dreadlord sword, which has to be upgraded with Undead Essence, which means that the Dreadlord sword is fundamentally far cheaper than the Bonzo's staff, because Wither Essence is ridiculously rare in comparison to Undead Essence. I had about 1,000 Undead Essence for every 100 Wither Essence I got, personally. So that means that the effective price for the Bonzo's staff was 10 times as much. And that's not even counting the amount of essence it requires for each. The Bonzo's staff requires 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100, whereas the Dreadlord's sword requires 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, which, as you can probably tell, is cheap. It is ridiculously cheap. So, looking at the Bonzo staff and the Dreadlord sword, the Bonzo staff is more expensive, is totally outclassed in area of effect and mana cost by the Dreadlord sword, and all that for a measly little damage boost of, let's see here, 11,179 versus 11,106, a measly little 73 damage. Which is doubled while in dungeons, of course. So, a measly little 146 damage. That is all that the Bonzo staff is good for. Doing 146 more damage than the Dreadlord sword, which means, I guess, it's kind of good for bursting down mini bosses, but if you are grinding floor 4s, mobs, you're gonna want a Dreadlord sword. You're not going to want a Bonzo's staff. It's just, I'm not even gonna use it anymore. It's not worth it. The Bonzo's staff is just not worth it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.